Welcome to Critical Movement YYC. Let's talk about our body out of balance. Do our legs need to be the same length? We look for symmetry everywhere, in nature, beauty, and in our bodies. Asymmetry is part of our DNA. Our heart and internal organs are off to center. Two halves of our brain are different, and we're usually one side dominant. Let's look at this topic because it's something that comes up with many manual therapists, chiropractors, physiotherapists, massage therapists, osteopaths, and they sound very determined to create symmetry in the body to reduce pain and injury. There are two things I have to say about that, and then I'll explain a healthier approach. First, in terms of general treatment, it's an outdated approach. The idea that our bodies will be even from the left side to the right side is nothing short of ridiculous. We know that if you take a mirror image of your face, set up a mirror image on the left side and make it look like a completely matching face with the same side, it looks weird because both sides are different. We know our bone structure not only differs from another human being, but from one side to the other side. With these things that we know, then we have to ask, does being asymmetrical really matter? To quote Dr. Matt Jordan, I would rather be strong and somewhat asymmetrical than weak and symmetrical. My biggest concern and notable observation is that the worst part of this search for symmetry is the language and perceived body image that they're setting up with their patients. I've worked with countless clients who have been told in the past by manual therapists that these noted imbalances need to be worked on. Often the areas where the imbalances are found are not even the areas of concern, pain, or injury. Granted, we know the body is connected and that one area can cause pain sensations in another, but that's not the topic right now. This negative approach to asymmetry leads directly to a more hypervigilant nervous system in the way that the person's told that their shoulders are not sitting evenly will now build a subconscious tension of trying to appear balanced for fear that they will end up with injury and pain. Then what happens? They end up with pain from the constant tension in their neck and shoulders. My other main challenge with this focus of imbalance leads to a stronger sense of kinesiophobia. There again, patients are leaving the session more conscious about how they're moving and possibly contributing to the imbalance. So they become being scared of moving incorrectly than possibly scared of moving in the first place. Again, more hypervigilance and more likely to cause pain due to the fear-pain cycle. So what's the answer? Surely we can't just fully ignore this and go on with our lives, as there is evidence that asymmetry in the body can cause injury. Like most things that I work with, I like to find some middle ground. So let's open up our curiosity about our body. Less judgment, more movement. Best example, when I'm teaching Lagree, it's fairly obvious as you move through a class that your left leg is different than your right leg, and that you can rotate your spine easier one way than the other, and that you can balance easier on one leg than the other. Instead of being annoyed and frustrated, let's break down the movement a little bit more, but with a caveat. Many years ago, I had a yoga teacher, Larry Schultz, teach about living in the question. That was the basis of where my practice went. Each day will be different. Don't judge. Notice, but don't analyze. Take note, but with less intensity. The basic message? Practice building an awareness, working towards balance, at the same time being completely content and accepting of imbalances. When these imbalances appear in Lagree class, I ask participants in class to build awareness of three things. 1, what is the difference in strength from one side to the other? 2, what's the difference in mobility, range of movement from one side to the other side? And 3, does one side have better connection to balance than the other side? Often these differences are fairly obvious, and you basically know the history of why. But even in that case, I would still recommend living in the question. Explore as you move, work out, walk, run, how this is affecting your day. Is the difference more prominent on some days than other days? Does this difference lead you to compensating more in a certain way when you're tired? What is the answer? Just like I talk about while teaching, let's train the weaker movement patterns. Let's work towards balance, even if it seems unlikely. And yet, does asymmetry matter? Yes, mainly when we're working with injuries. Best example is after an ACL reconstruction. An athlete needs to reach a certain level of symmetrical strength and range of movement in both legs to return to play. This makes sense. There was an injury, surgery. To get back to full exertion of movement and play, you need to have both limbs functioning fairly equally, within about 10% of each other. How does this apply to the person who goes to the chiropractor because of back pain and gets a scan showing them all their imbalances? Refer back to my 2 main points in this article about language and that effect on our fear-pain cycle. Let's find the middle ground and do better for all that are experiencing pain and want to live better. Thank you for listening to my mini podcast. And if you liked it, subscribe. If you know anybody who could learn from it, please share. See you in the next post.